Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start a little quiet today. Truly, this is the DFS Hangover show. My friend Chris Emmerich is with me. I am Johnny Danger. I had 5 to 6 too many shots of tequila yesterday. Christopher, how about you?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually partake. My stomach wasn't feeling good. I had some IPAs on Saturday. I did go to a Mexican restaurant yesterday. I ordered takeout at 7:30. I got there at 8 o'clock. Nobody talked to me until 8:25. My food was sitting on the counter, but they had one person doing takeout who was unable to multitask beyond one person at a time. I was very angry. I'm usually a generous tipper on takeout. I did not tip. I wrote a big zero, like a lot of emphasis on how large it was to show my displeasure. I will not be leaving a bad review. The food was okay. I realized it was my fault for going there on Cinco de Mayo, but a simple "Hey, is this yours?" would have been sufficient. Yeah.
Indeed.
So.
Indeed. So, we are the DFS Hangover Show from Draft for Upside. Our main show is every Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m., where you can catch Chris and I rambling about whatever we feel like rambling until Adam White joins us to talk about PGA. He was on fire this week. Did he happen to mention how he finished? I didn't catch his finish.
I don't know. I think he lost in our league. There was only five guys in it, so I think I took third and still lost money. But looking at the score, it didn't look like it would have done very well in regular GPPs of any type of size. He started pretty good, but didn't look like he finished
I
very
know he
good.
started out real hot. I actually hung out with him a little bit Thursday night at one of my Witches Hat events, and he was just on fire after the opening day. But I somehow didn't click save when we were building our lineup Wednesday night, so I was not in. I'll fix that this week. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
So
Mark
we
wasn't
are
there.
broadcasting live on the Legend Sports Network. You can find it at lennymelnickfantasysports.com/live. If you scroll down a little bit, you will see the live listening app and the chat room, which is always live, always there. People are there, they're talking, they're chatting, they're interacting. You could be one of those people. Just go and sign up for a free guest account, get your name in there, and contribute. It's fantastic. Every day, Monday through Saturday, we've got Lenny in at 9 a.m. On Mondays, you've got us at 11. You've got Pitches Get Stitches with Joel at 1 o'clock. Drop the Mic with Mike Eccleston at 3. Money 1 is twice as nice with Cam at 5:30. Roto Imbeciles with George at 7. Andy and that guy at 8. Sports Buffet with Lou and Ron at 9. And a box that just continues to say Dan at 11 p.m. Don't know what that is, but God bless you, Dan. What's new with you, Chris?
Hey, not a whole lot. This weekend was pretty decent. I broke my Houston Astros curse where they didn't perform when I played them. I played most of the right guys most of the time, so I guess Mexico City will do that for you. Just a couple bad breaks, but overall pretty solid weekend. I kind of changed my approach and decided that I was going to go at it a different way. I think we need to do that from time to time, and I complained that I was missing teams or missing stacks by a couple guys. So instead of making 3 to 5 lineups, I just started making 20. And that way I could get 5 to 6 of each team that I was pretty high on. And that way I could capitalize on that. Certainly there's a little bit more risk and less upside if that team hits because I'm putting them in $4, entry tournaments as opposed to 20 or 75 or 100. But had pretty good ROI for the weekend.
That's good, man. Yeah, I did the same. I played a couple different lineups over the weekend and doubled up my cash flow, so which is nice. I of course don't play as high risk as you do, but I do. I have an apology to make, Chris. I have an apology. You won't hear it often, so save this audio bite. Be able to play it back later. But I did a cardinal sin of fantasy baseball, and I rage quit a league over the weekend. And that's not cool, man. I mean, no matter what was justified of the response, no matter what's going on, you just don't do it. And I'm the asshole for doing it. But I'll tell you what happened. So obviously Juan Soto over the weekend got put on the IL. I had quite a few Mexican pops over the weekend, and I tried to put him on the IL. I accidentally dropped him. I reached out to the league on the message board. I reached out to the commissioner's brother and a fellow person who got me in the league. It's a no money home league. Dynasty, I believe it's a 10-team league, might be 12, but I'd have to look. Um, and and I got no response. So basically, I said, "Hey, I accidentally dropped this guy. Can somebody please help me?" Um, and I got silence basically. So um, I waited and I waited and I reached out and I got one response back from the guy's brother saying, "Hey, I'll take it to my brother." Uh, Long story short, the waivers cleared overnight last night. Somebody picked up Soto. I heard nothing from anybody at all. I was pretty hungover. I'd woke up about 5:30 in the morning, and I just was pissed off about the situation. And I commissioned several leagues, and communication is key. And so I just kind of got pissed off, and then dropped like my other three studs and picked up guys and put them in their spots. Wasn't cool. I shouldn't do that. But I feel like being upset was okay because, as I was told by my fellow friend that got me in the league, Adam White, actually, our co-host, the commissioner did say something to him about family stuff coming up and not being able to get on, and it wasn't his priority to look at the baseball league, which I get it. It's just a game. But where was the reach out to me? Where was the reach out? Hey, man, too much shit going on. I'll look at this Monday or Tuesday, or worry about it later. This isn't important to me right now. I don't know. Maybe somebody died in the family. Maybe something big was going on. I totally understand. I'm not trying to justify my rage quit, but I think you can see where I was frustrated getting no communication in that situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, and to be fair, you did say you dropped Bryce Harper, so I mean that was probably a good move because dude sucks, and you probably got somebody better in his place. So that was probably a legit move. Nobody probably realized that you were rage quitting on that particular one. Um, and to be fair, Juan Soto has not been fantastic either. So, feasibly you could have dropped him as well. Look, I get it. I think that is the challenge with these leagues, that you don't have any money invested. That I can get it. Like from a commissioner standpoint, if you have other things going on, that's not your priority because there's no money on the line. It's kind of why I don't play in those type of leagues. And I get frustrated when people say in money leagues, basketball especially. I mean, it happens from time to time, even with me. But baseball is similar because it's such a long sport where people don't set their lineups and they're like, "Man, I just didn't have time today." Stop, man! Like it takes 10 seconds to set your lineup. In baseball, you get such a large amount of time when lineups come out, and it's even earlier this year than it has been in previous years. So, I just hate that excuse, and I'm not applying it to this situation. I'm just saying in general. Because you can set your lineup in basketball for an entire week. You can set your lineup for baseball for an entire week if you really are that pressed on time, or you're going to be someplace where your phone doesn't work. So I just hate that excuse. But again, there's nothing invested in the league. Like it is what it is. So I can see where that comes from.
For sure. So apparently, frustration was my theme of the weekend. So Saturday was opening day in Little League. I have two wonderful children. One starting his career in t-ball at 5 years old. The other one playing the basically high school alternative league. We don't have Little League actually here. It's the Howell Area Junior Baseball Association, or lovingly referred to as HAJBA. That's pretty cool, right, Chris? HAJBA.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the video of your 5-year-old swinging. I think Lenny was on point. You got to teach him that launch angle. That ground ball's, it might work in Little League, but we got to get that launch angle up. And he
That's
got the
true
barrel
story.
on it. His exit velocity was pretty good, but they're gonna ground that in the big leagues. So
That's right. True story. We'll work on that. And
it,
then the
it
other
will
one
help
is 14,
when you
and
call it.
he sadly did not make the freshman squad. And so what Hajba did was, after demand from many parents, because this particular corner of Michigan is very, very into their travel team baseball, to the point where there are some talented kids who don't play high school ball. They play on more advanced, like 15 and under, 16 and under travel teams, because they actually get better competition and better exposure to possibly getting some looks at from college recruiters. So it's interesting. So they added a 14 to 15 or 15 to 16 league at the local kind of Little League thing, which has been cool because Michael, he's not good enough to play at the next level, but he thoroughly enjoys the game. So I'm glad they added that for him. So here's my problem. So we have this kid on the team, which shall remain unnamed, that is intense. And his parents are intense, and sadly, his father is the assistant coach of the team. And this is the only kid on the team throwing bats when he strikes out, throwing his helmet in frustration, getting mad all the time, arguing with umpires constantly, yelling at the other team. The guy's just a jerk, and it's boiled over a couple of times. Last year, he had this thing where he kept, quote unquote, accidentally clotheslining the first baseman while trying to beat out a ground ball or a drop third strike throw out to first base. And he's bowled over people on the baselines unnecessarily. Now he says, "Oh, hey, they were in my baseline. What do you want me to do?" Well, this is true. The other players, it wasn't an illegal, move. It's just unnecessary and extreme unsportsmanlike. And it's happened more than once. And there was a doubleheader to open the day, and I'm sitting there with my mom and my dad. Beautiful day, trying to watch some baseball, and my mom leans over, and this is the first game of the year, and she goes, "Isn't that kid with the anger issues from last year?" I said, "Yeah, it is." She goes, "What do you think? What do you think the chances are of us getting through the day without there being an incident?" There was a double header, and we both kind of laughed and were like 100% that there's going to be an incident, and it made it all the way to the very last out of the game. They were up by 2, bottom of the 8th, which is extra innings in Little League, and the bases were loaded. The guy hit a single out to right field. The right fielder threw a bullet. The guy on third scored. The guy on second tried to round, and they threw him out by like 6-7 feet. And the kid running home saw the catcher catch the ball, pulled up from running, and was just slowly trotting in because he knew he was out. He was going to get tagged. And the catcher ran up and literally shoved him. The kid fell over and almost bowled backwards. And then, so they go back to, high five, handshake at the end of the game with the two teams. And the kid, obviously didn't want to shake hands with the kid that knocked him over. So he ignored him. So at the end, the kid on our team ran back over to apparently apologize. And he kind of held his hand up for like a high five. Well, the other kid like flinched at it like he thought he was going to get hit and swatted at his hand. And so then some of the people were upset. One of the coaches was yelling at the kid that was a jerk on our team, and he's like, "Well, that kid slapped me in the face," which didn't happen. And then his mom came out of the stands and wanted the coaches to go talk to the other coach, the kid, and their parents for their kid slapping their kid when it was in response to him being a dick, even though he didn't slap him at all. There's no place for it in Little League. There's no reason for you to be pushing people over, for knocking people over, for throwing elbows, for clotheslining kids. I mean, these kids weigh 105 pounds. I mean, there's just no reason for it. It drives me crazy. And I shouldn't have to go into every one of the games with my kid and knowing that there's going to be an asshole moment from one of his teammates. It's embarrassing and it's frustrating. And I finally said something to the coach, the head coach, not this kid's dad, who's the assistant coach, and said, "Hey, man, I'm not going to like pull my kid off the team." I said, "But it's embarrassing that he's getting associated with this kid. It's frustrating as somebody who's just here to watch kids play baseball. And if this kind of incident goes on and it's not addressed and there's nothing to come of it, I don't know if I can come here and watch these games anymore." Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know, but it's irritating and there's no place for it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when I was probably like 11 or 12, we had a rivalry with a team in our little league where it turned into like trading like beanballs and stuff like that. It was pretty interesting. We got heated on the parent side. It was just one team that we had this issue with, and this was at like 12 or 13 years. It's probably like 11 or 12 years old. So you're only allowed to throw maybe a fastball, and then you're learning to throw a changeup a little bit, but it turned into people throwing curves and split fingers, ineffective, mind you, hitting other players on the team. I mean, it was pretty out of control. Never really had that encounter in baseball. I was kind of the kid that you're talking about when it comes to hockey, where I was knocking people's sticks and checking people in non-contact hockey. But baseball is a little more gentlemanly. I was never like that in baseball, so I can see where that's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's catches sometimes, and he's arguing with the umpire over balls and strikes. He takes every excuse to Try to call out other player, like they tried to throw a guy out at third, and the batter didn't get out of the way. Now, it's common courtesy for the batter to duck down or move out of the way, right? But ultimately, the batter box is his spot and where he's supposed to be, and there is no obligation for that batter to move out of the batter's box. Now, if he moves and moves into the direction where it gets in the way of the catcher, now that's interference. That's different. But as long as you stand still and stay in that box and don't move any way, that's completely legal. And that happened twice, and the kid's like yelling at the other coach, tell him he's got to move, this kid's got to move, and yelling at the umpire, he's got to be thrown out, he's in my way. They're 14. This isn't high school ball. This isn't travel ball. This is like the kids that aren't good enough or have no aspiration to go to the next level and just want to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Well, I just had to vent. I'm good now. That's what podcasts are for, right? Personal venting that nobody else is interested in hearing about.
Yeah. So hey, now that we've got that out of the way, let's.
All right, let's talk baseball, man. So what's going on tonight? What's the word? You excited about the slate? You got some words of wisdom for building a team? Anything new that you've been researching or trying that you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I think was helpful this weekend was using Baseball Press's bullpen usage. It was something that I think I built teams almost based off of that one stat alone. And what I mean by that is there were a couple bullpens that were just extremely taxed. You had the White Sox coming off of a doubleheader where they then were playing Boston. They had guys like Giolito and Kube and Ronaldo Lopez starting for them. And these are guys that don't typically go very deep into games, and you already have a taxed bullpen, which you can see through the bullpen usage. So I thought that these were opportunities to get to a tired bullpen, even if the starting pitcher was somebody that was going to go his typical amount of innings, which could be 4 to 6. You're still going to get several innings out of it. I mean, I think the game I want to say on Friday, the White Sox even went to Rondon, a positional player, to throw some 50-mile-an-hour fastballs over the plate in the ninth inning. The Red Sox weren't too happy about that. They didn't really capitalize. It was a little rainy. But, if you're going to a positional player to save your bullpen down 6-1, the team's in some trouble. And it was pretty indicative throughout the entire week or weekend that White Sox bullpen was just, they were done. Kube on Sunday had a pretty decent start. I think he only went 4 innings though. But really kind of limited the damage that the White Sox or the Red Sox were doing. But then as the 7th, 8th, and 9th came in, they came through. Xander Bogaerts, I had him on a lot of teams, hit a grand slam in the top of the 8th. After going,
there was what? How many grand slams were there yesterday? 10?
There were a couple. I didn't see a stat on that, but now that you say it, there were a couple.
Yeah, I thought I saw an article saying it was the most grand slams in a day in like a decade or more or something.
Maybe so. I can remember 3 or 4 off the top of my head, but look. So that was I was targeting the Red Sox. I think their bats are starting to heat up. Their offense is getting better. JD Martinez on DraftKings price is just super attractive in comparison to guys that have his upside. I mean, he's $600, $700, $800 cheaper than Mookie Betts on most days. Michael Chavez has just been slashing the ball and a huge help to that offense. So the Red Sox were a target there for that reason. Now, same reason, the Reds and the Giants had a game where on Friday that the tons of relief pitchers were used. Both teams were exhausted, and throughout the rest of the weekend, they had some high-scoring games where the bullpens blew it for them. There's 2 sides here. You can target the offenses that have that have a bullpen that they're going to face that's going to be tired, especially if you don't think the starter is going to be capable of going into those longer innings. But conversely, on the other side of things, you have to think sometimes with these pitchers that if there is a decent pitcher going, that the team's going to extend them a little extra liberty to go a little bit longer into the game than they usually do. Now, you're not going to expect that from a Giolito or a Kube or a guy like Samardzija maybe is kind of on the fringe. But so yesterday, there wasn't a lot of cheap options in pitching. I went a lot of Zach Davies. I like targeting Zach Davies a lot of times anyway because he usually is pretty consistent, limits damage. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of upside, but his price is usually at a point where you can kind of stomach it to get some bats in. But the Mets and the Brewers had just played the 18-inning game, used a ton of pitchers. And so I felt like Zach Davies was going to, as long as he didn't get blown up, he was going to get some opportunities to go a lot longer into the game. And he almost pitched 8 full innings. I think it was the most pitches thrown by a Brewers starter since Zach Davies like 4, 5, 6 years ago. So, it's a dual thing that you want to look at. You want to look at maybe targeting a pitching staff with bats against a weak bullpen that's been overused, and vice versa. If you have a decent starter there, you know that they're going to go a long, long way. For example, today, and it's not on the main slate, it is on a turbo slate, but the Cleveland Indians bullpen was used extensively yesterday, and I think some of these guys could pitch again today. But you got Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer is going to go 8 innings. Even if he gets into some trouble, so he would be a pitcher that's safe, even if it wasn't Trevor Bauer, for example.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I've been playing basically. I've been playing the turbos. I haven't had time to do whole slate research recently, so I've been playing a lot of these 3 to 4 game slates, and I've been getting pretty comfortable with them. So I don't know. I will see what we're gonna play today. Let me look to see what's around, what's attractive, what sounds good. It is a 9-game slate today, 7:05. You can play a 2-game turbo starting at 6 if you like, a 4-game 7 o'clock turbo, or a 3-game 8 o'clock turbo, or a 2-game 10 o'clock night slate. So you going to play anything besides the whole game slate, Chris?
Probably not. Look, the thing with those slates is you have to get almost everything right. That's the reality of it. If you miss a guy that hits a home run or 2 home runs, then you're completely out of it. The smaller the slate, the more importance on that one little piece of variance. The one player that I'm really looking at in the whole game or the whole slate, Josh Smith. Looks like he's only 4K. We'll see how many innings he goes, but he's got some strikeout stuff. But anytime a pitcher's 4K, if you can get 3 innings out of the guy, 4 innings, he's somebody that you can pair with some of these big time pitchers that we have today, like Scherzer, DeGrom, Cole, a couple other guys that you can get the stud pitcher, and you're not really costing yourself anything else in your lineup.
I'm just taking a peek at that now. So he's playing Baltimore in Baltimore. Is there going to be weather issues there? I know they were postponed yesterday.
No, and I think they could have played yesterday, so I don't think there's going to be any weather issues. The guy has shown pretty decent strikeout stuff in the minors. I'm just trying to look a little bit deeper into him here. The last time he was up in the majors was back in 2017. I just wonder how many innings he's going to pitch. The most innings he pitched was 3 back in 2017. Let's go back here. Let's take a look at what he's been doing and what he's been throwing out in the minors so far this year. I don't know much about him. I know he has about a 92-mile-an-hour fastball with about 9.4 inches of vertical movement, which is decent. His slider and his cutter aren't anything fantastic. Neither is his change, but the differential in speed between the change and the fastball is decent enough that he could probably fool some guys. Looks like he's been throwing about six innings in the minors. So yeah, hopefully we can get 3 or 4 innings out of this kid and a couple strikeouts, which he has shown to possess. Get some points out of him. And then the idea is who you're going to play along with him. What stud are you gonna pair him with? Is it going to be Scherzer? Is it going to be Cole? Is it going to be DeGrom? Is it going to be Snell? There are a lot of guys that you can go with, or do you go with like a cheaper option like a Walker Buehler, or do you go an all bat lineup and pair him up with a guy like Martin Perez, who has flashed a little bit of extra K upside this year, coming in at 20%. I don't know. I haven't looked too far into it yet.
Well, I tell you, the Toronto Blue Jays were making aces out of everybody earlier this year.
Yeah, they still have been. they've shown a little extra power. I just think that they have. I like throwing lefties against them, truthfully. Just because you avoid some of the extra power from Talese, you avoid some of the extra power from Smoke. Not that Smoke can't hit left-handed pitching, but he's just far better as a left-handed hitter than he is as a right-handed. And Talese is, a natural splits guy, so he's gonna homer off of righties a lot more. So, you look at this, and even Sogard, who had flashed some power. I'm just looking at this lineup right now. Teoscar, Hernandez, and Grichuk are the only guys over a 200 ISO, and every one of these guys, except for Galvis, has a 19% K rate or higher. Most of which, actually, if you look at it, Grichuk 28, Smoke 21, Guerrero 29, Talese 36, 30 for Drury, 29 for Hernandez, and 30 for Molly. I mean, there's going to be some strikeouts here. For Perez, even though he's, like I said, not a huge strikeout guy, but certainly.
If you start your lineup with Perez and Smith as your pitchers, and you're only paying 10-6 total, that's pretty sick. That's less than Garrett Cole individually. Now, of course, that'd be extremely high risk there, but it leaves you $4,925 per player to fill out your bats.
Yeah, I mean, look, you kind of have to. You kind of have to hit on all your bats at that point, though, because what kind of upside do you have? I mean, you're probably looking at maybe a maximum of 35 points from your pitchers. Mm-hmm. So to win a GPP, you're going to need 150, 160 points from your hitters. Just to cash, you're probably going to need about 100, 120, which isn't undoable. But let's see. One of the places that I would be interested in targeting.
Well, I got to put all the Philly guys up against my man Miles Mikolas. So who am I targeting in Philly today? Who has to be in my lineup? Because you know how much I love to beat up on Mikolas.
I mean, he's had a couple decent starts. He hasn't been completely garbage the last couple games. So
that means he's due to be garbage again.
I don't know. The guy has a huge ground ball rate. That's the problem. Is when you're going to attack a guy like Mikolas, you're not going to get a lot of the home runs, and the Phillies' offense has not been good recently. So it's tough to say. I mean, I think Segura should be in the start of any of the stacks. You've got Hoskins, Harper, McCutchen, the usual suspects. Franco has not been playing as good recently. I'm not sure that I want to play Herrera or Hernandez or Real Muto for the price that he's going to be and the premium you're going to pay. The Phillies' offense just has been a little bit stagnant, and I'm just not going to attack a ground ball pitcher when I think that there are better options.
Nah, it's time. He's had 7 starts this year. He's struck out only 4 in his top. He's had 3 starts with 4 strikeouts, 3 starts with 3 strikeouts, 1 start with 2 strikeouts. He's given up 8 home runs in those 7 starts, including 3 home runs in the start before the last start. So I ain't scared, man. I hate him. I want to play against him. You know this.
Yeah, I mean, again, his fly ball rate is 34%, a 47% ground ball rate. I mean, his xFIP and Sierra are not good. I'm not saying that. It's just he's not giving up a tremendous amount of hard contact. When he is giving up fly balls, they are going out. But he doesn't excite me as a pitcher that I want to attack. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to attack ground ball pitchers. I think that there are better spots and bigger slates like this one that you can attack. I'm certainly not trying to roster Miles by any means.
No, never.
But I would, let's see. Let's pull up a couple fly ball rates here. I think the left-handers from the Cubs are interesting against Sandy Alcantara, who's really good against right-handed pitching or right-handed hitting, but just not so good against left-handers. Fly ball pitchers on this slate, you've got D. Scalfini, Chasson, Paddock, who I'm probably not going to target, Velasquez, Sabathia, and Gosman. The other guy that's interesting would be John Means. I think John Means is a guy that a lot of people went ahead and rostered when he was pretty cheap. Now he's at 7K or 7.5K. I don't see how you can play this guy when you're not even sure that he's going to go the 5 innings that he's going to need to hit that value. When he was clocking in at 4.5, you were good with 3. If you got 5, that was great. And it wasn't going to hurt you, but he has the strikeout stuff. It's just I don't have the confidence that he's going to go as deep into the game especially because Baltimore didn't play yesterday. So it's not that their bullpen needs extra rest. I just don't know if I see him going the full 5 innings.
All right, well, let's look at it this way, Chris. We've got a very top-heavy group of pitchers today. There's a lot of different ways we can go. Obviously, we need to see how weather comes out, how the wind's looking, who's playing inside, who's playing outside. We got to see some lineups to really get deep into this. But what we can do right now is look at these pitchers. You got Garrett Cole, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Blake Snell, Walker Buehler. Those are our top 5 guys, ranging from 9,400 up to 10,700 for Garrett Cole. Just looking through these right here, my quick take, just gut feeling, and you can back it up with stats because that's what you do, or tear me down, one or the other. Garrett Cole at home against Kansas City is very attractive to me. DeGrom in San Diego, Pitchers Park, like it. San Diego's still missing a couple other guys. I know that Tatis was injured. I don't know where he's at now. Machado has not been himself yet this year. Scherzer at Milwaukee, probably dome closed. Mac's been fallible this year. He has not been the shutdown master that he's been in the past. Milwaukee's been kind of hot and dangerous. Blake Snell at home against Arizona. Walker Buehler at home against Atlanta. Walker Buehler's been on our team, man. He is not striking people out this year. What's up with that?
A lot's been said about that. His stuff still looks good. It's just I think some of these guys have gotten a little bit unlucky. You look at a guy like Max Scherzer. I don't know if this is the lineup that I want to attack, but his BABIP is 377. That's going to come down. He has an xFIP at 2.67. His K percentage against lefties is lower than it's been, but that can be attributed to a lot of luck. He is giving up hard contact. I mean, the concern that you would have with Max is that if there was ever a spot that you won off was with lefty power, and last year he was better against lefties than he had been previous years. But you're going to have Yelich, Thames, Moustakas, Grandal, Shaw, Gamble, most likely in there if Kane's not good to go. So you're going to roll out a lineup with 7 lefties. You can look at it two ways. You can look at it that this is going to be a position where you're going to get Scherzer at really low ownership, but it's going to be a tough matchup, and that's why you're going to get that lower ownership.
And we can argue that Max has only paid off his salary 1 time, possibly 2 times on the year, period. So he's been consistently over 10K. This is the second cheapest he's been on the year. 1 game he's scored over 30 DK points. 1 game. And then the next closest game was 29.4, and the next closest game after that was 22. So he just hasn't been paying off the salary, and I don't know that this is a spot that he's going to again.
Yeah, but again, you can't look at the box scores. The box scores are not – they're not everything. The fact that his xFIP is still where it is, he still has a good K percentage, the price is down, the BABIP is up, makes me think that he's still somebody that you can target. I think you'll get low ownership on him, and so you'll get some leverage. I mean, if you can get a Max Scherzer under 10% ownership, I think that's something that's really, really attractive.
And I think that's definitely a possibility, of course, with those 5 names alone that we've talked about it so far.
Yeah, the question is, do you think that he'll have a lower ownership or a guy like Blake Snell, who, if you're a box score looker like yourself here, he hasn't really paid off his salary many times. He's had a couple good games, but he's had a couple bad ones.
Yeah. He's paid it off 3 times in incredible fashion and then absolutely shit the bed the other 3 times in unbelievable fashion.
Well, and the most recent of those 2 or the 2 most recent starts that he's had have been bad. So it's not like he had a couple bad ones and now he's rebounding and good. Somebody that's looking at those box scores is going to see that he has had 2 bad starts in a row. And, I think against a team like Arizona that is coming off a Coors series, flash some power, flash some pop, but now you're going to be in Tampa, which is a more hitter-friendly park. I think that his ownership will be suppressed as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he came from double-digit strikeouts in three straight games to 3-2. People are looking at those things. I mean, it's not the end-all be-all for sure, Chris, but I definitely go through and look at it. I mean, I definitely take a peek at it, and yeah, it's not good. And I do like Snell. Actually, I like Garrett Cole the most out of these top five, and I like Snell the second most out of this top five. So those are my two favorite guys of the top five.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at Snell, I mean, his BABIP numbers are fine. His ground ball percentage to lefties has been pretty fantastic. So it's really going to take Peralta and maybe Dyson out of the lineup. But you're going to have Jones, Marte, Walker, Flores, Ahmed, and Escobar that are going to have some power. And he's been giving up power to both sides. He's been striking them out too. So um, it's definitely a GPP play. I agree with you. Cole's probably the guy that you want to go with in cash, or maybe DeGrom. San Diego did play a little bit better over the weekend, but it is a pretty hitter-friendly park. I think the other guy that you can kind of look at that we didn't mention, who's had some really good results and has some upside and is going against a lineup that can completely disappear at times, is going to be Chris Paddock against against the Mets. The only problem is half these Mets are going to be left-handed hitters, which he strikes out at 23% versus 35, still good. I guess you have Brandon Nimmo there, who strikes out at 36%, kind of, offsets that. And I think a safe bet on a prop bet is that Todd Frazier probably strikes out twice tonight. That would be my guess. So I think Chris Paddock is interesting as well in terms of pitchers that you can look at and target.
So, so when you have this many options that of good pitchers, because I can go a little lower than that, and I like Cole Hamels where he's at today. I always like Kevin Gausman this year, but the Dodgers at home have been tearing apart right-handed pitchers, so I don't know about that. But there's some values in what we were talking about earlier with Josh Smith and um, a couple of guys down there. So when you're looking at this, how much do you take into effect that how much that we like Chris Paddock, but he is going against DeGrom, and it takes his win chances down a little bit. Do you think about that? Do you worry about that at all to get that 4 extra win points?
No, not so much on DK. You probably think about it a little bit more so on FanDuel, where it's weighted a little heavier. I mean, of course, you have the quality start as well. So, there you're less likely to take, or at least I am. I'm less likely to take some chances on guys that either A, I don't think are going to get the win, or B, not going to get the quality start. I guess if you can get one or the other, and you can get the bats that you want, that's important. Look, this has been my strategy. If I'm building 20 lineups. And I think you can do this with 2, 1, 3, whatever the case is more so target the pitchers that you want to get bats against. You get 3 or 4 teams. You get a couple one-offs, and you figure out how you're going to build these lineups. You know the pitchers that you like, so we have a good sprinkling of pitchers that we like at this point. What I'm more likely to do is go ahead and put in the stack that I want from the team that I want. Go ahead and fill in maybe one pitcher, and then put in a couple other guys and just figure out who's going to fit, especially on a slate that I know that I have pitchers at every price point. So it doesn't matter what the stack looks like. When you're in a position where you only have high priced guys and all your lower priced guys are pretty rough, like yesterday was a good example of this. If Zach Davies wasn't there sub 7K, there was really nobody else that I wanted to play that I felt confident even had a remote possibility of having a decent game. Besides that, it was like Turnbull and Keller, and they were both in the 8K range. So when I know that I have a guy at 4K that I feel confident enough of running out there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put the stacks in that I like. And, from there, I'll put in the pitchers that I like and just whatever fits. And then I'll continue to do that. I'll reevaluate it at the end and say, hey, maybe I got too much of this guy, or I really want to get in a couple pitcher-heavy lineups and see if I can do that. Unfortunately, that didn't work out so well for me this weekend when I went with like a Corbin, Rich Hill. I was like, man, these guys are going to be good. I'll just fill in a lineup around them. And neither of them were. So I think on big spread slates like this, it's more imperative to find the guys that you want to target or guys you can get leverage on.
So for me here, Chris, I'm going to play a 3-max is what I do. Okay, I play a 50-50 that if I win covers all my winnings back, and I play a 3-max. That's just how I've been rolling. I know it's slow and boring, but it keeps me being able to play and talk about it. So that's what I've been doing. So I got a 3 slate, a 3-max. build here, I'm probably going to use a total of 4 or 5 pitchers and put them between all 4 of my lineups, right? So where is this value? Are you pretty much kind of just locked in right now with Martin Perez? Do you just like him enough where if I'm going to have, say, 4 lineups, he's going to be in 2 or 3 of them? Do you like Martin Perez enough at his value?
Probably not in 2 or 3 of them, but if you're going to do 3 lineups, I think you can do one with Perez. I think you can do one with Smith, and then you kind of got to figure out another guy from there. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want exposure on a 3 max. I wouldn't want anything like 66% exposure to any of these guys.
Sure.
I'd want to spread it out. If you were going to have maximum exposure to a pitcher, I think Garrett Cole would be the guy that you could, build a Cole and Perez, a Cole and Smith, and then I don't know. I think, let's see.
So obviously, when you build 20 lineups, you can expose yourself to anybody you like. But if I'm going to build 3 lineups, I need to get a little bit more, focused in.
But I don't think that that's the case. I mean, if I'm building 20 lineups, I don't want more than 30, 35% on any guy particularly. So I think a 3 max is just a really small. You don't have the variations at times, but I'm not going 40 or 50% exposure to any pitcher, to any batter when I'm making 20 lineups. If I'm doing 3 lineups, I'm probably trying to do 3 individual lineups with very little overlap on a slate this size. Pitcher being the exception.
So for me, I can see a little value in Josh Smith, but you're right. I don't know that he goes more than 3 innings, and if he gets shelled, he maybe only goes 1 inning. That's my only concern with him.
But he's only 4K, so
right.
If you're going to get a hitter that's 4K, which is almost like the minimum price hitter these days, if he had a double and a run and got you 7 points, you're not ecstatic with that, but you don't hate it. And so if this guy goes 2 innings, I mean, he is playing Baltimore. Let's just be real about it. It's not the most difficult of matchups. It's not the easiest either. But if the guy goes out and gets you 8, 9, 10 points, you should be extremely happy with that at 4K, especially because it gives you the opportunity to get a pitcher like Garrett Cole who can give you 3x on your money. When you're looking at some of these other pitchers, in the mid-range, like Marcus Stroman against Minnesota. I have no interest in it. But let's say Marcus Stroman was in a good matchup. What's he going to give you? 15, 16, 17 points at 7K? That's not 3K. Walker Buehler is probably not going to give you 3X. Merrill Kelly's not going to 3X his value. Jacob Junis is very likely not going to 3X his value. The only guys that can 3 and 4X their value are those big guys up at the top. Even a Kevin Gausman, I don't know where he's priced, but I would assume 8 to 9K, or Vince Velasquez, who I think is probably similarly priced. You're not very likely to get those peak ceiling performances where you're going to get 3, 4X on your money. Whereas I think with a guy like Garrett Cole, a guy like Blake Snell, a guy like Max Scherzer, you're probably more in the realm of 20 to 40% of the time being able to get that. And so you're giving yourself the opportunity, and it more than makes up for itself.
Right.
But if you're really worried about it and you really don't have a lot of faith in them, have a third lineup where, you go with the, where you stack up the Orioles. The nice thing is if you only think he's going to go 3 innings, you could have him be successful and have a hedge lineup with the Orioles be successful too. Because if they get to the bullpen and not the starter, he goes his 3 or 4 innings, he's successful, he puts up 15 points. Somebody else comes in and just blows up for the rest of the game. You could still, both of those lineups are still live.
Right.
It's a little different if you have like Max Scherzer in one lineup and then you have the Brewers in another lineup. The two, it still could happen. Like the Brewers could be successful and Max could be successful, but the likelihood of that is so much less because you're not going to get as many at bats against the bullpen as you might in that other situation. So that's my recommendation to you is a Smith lineup, a Perez lineup, a Max. Put it with Cole, Max, whoever you want, and then that third one's kind of more of a middle of the road kind of pitcher like a Kevin Gausman and I don't know, like a Vince Velasquez or something like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's talk about, without seeing lineups, obviously, and without seeing the rest of the weather report, let's talk about your favorite stacks to stack up today. Just flipping around through this, I like the Boston guys. They've been hot. Betts had the day off. He should be back, I believe. Um, I like those guys. I like what you're saying about bringing in the Baltimore players into one of these lineups. I like that a lot. Um, I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe another swipe of the Cubs. The Cubs seem like they're heating up a little bit. I like the Houston bats today. I actually like the St. Louis bats against Velasquez today.
Yeah, I mean, sure, that's a possibility. I like Velasquez. I think when he blows up, he blows up, and he didn't really have a terrible game against Detroit. He just had like a bad inning, and they didn't really let him go too far. They didn't let him blow up too much. But certainly this Cardinals lineup is one that you can fear with Goldschmidt, DeJong, Ozuna, Martinez has been fantastic. But they still strike out a lot. You're looking at 25, 28, 16, 20, 21. Molina is the only guy that's really a low percent K guy. And Velasquez strikes out 28% of righties. This lineup's going to be pretty much all righties. Problem is that's where he's been giving up a lot of his power. So, from a GPP standpoint, I think Velasquez is in play. I don't think that I would play him in cash. If you're looking for more of a guarantee, but there's certainly a blow up chance here. So I get the Cardinals play. It's probably not where I'm targeting, though.
In the chat room here, Unholy Toledo says that he thinks that the 18-inning game is still taking a toll on the Brewers even 2 days later. He's been a proponent of Max so far in the chat room.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think so, but I don't mind Max. I really don't. I think it would be interesting in my 20 lineups, because here's where having 20 lineups is advantageous, is I can have some Max Scherzer exposure and I can go get some Brewers exposure. And I probably have a little bit of both, maybe one lineup of each or two lineups of each. In three lineups, I don't think you have that luxury. You have to kind of take a stand one way or the other. The 18-inning game, yeah. The one thing that I wouldn't look at is I don't think the pitching staff is going to be as taxed. Again, Davies was able to go almost the full 8 innings. Hader came in and did the close. So I wouldn't look at the other side in Washington and say this is a must play because this pitching staff is tired. But I think you can make a point. Ryan Braun looked slow yesterday, especially at the end, trying to catch up to the fastballs. He's looked slow doing that all year, and he's been cheating on it. But I wouldn't be looking at him. But at the same time, this Milwaukee lineup is going to be a little bit different from that 18-inning game. Grandal, I guess if you're looking for one-offs, Grandal didn't play. It was Manny Pena. Yelich hasn't played that much, so I don't think I'm really too worried about him. Gamble only played a couple innings in that game. Moustakas didn't play in that game. Thames didn't play in that game. So the lineup that they're throwing out there is not going to be one that had to play 18 innings and then play 9 innings again. So
sure, and they are back at home.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, when you look at it a little deeper, maybe a guy like Shaw, maybe a guy like Braun or Arcia, those guys might be worse for wear, which makes it harder to stack that team. But I don't think that it's a must play because of that. I think the lower percent exposure or the lower percent ownership that you're going to get on Scherzer just because of his box scores and all the numbers pointing to him being successful still are reasons that I'm going to go to Scherzer, not so much that 18-inning game. It's definitely something that you want to take into. And I certainly tried to target the Brewers yesterday because it was Jason Vargas Day.
Right. All right, so take a little pause for the cause here. Again, we are Draft for Upside. We are broadcasting live on the Legend Sports Network from Lenny Melnick FantasySports.com. If you go to that webpage /live, you can check us out. There's live radio going on most days of the week and a great live chat room. You can interact with the show as they go. This is the DFS Hangover show, of course, and literally hungover. Right now, I'm brewing a batch of coffee, Chris, and it's just fantastic. Hyperion Coffee Company in Ypsilanti, Michigan. This particular blend is the Prometheus Dark, a dark roasted blend. This is kind of their house coffee. It is absolutely fantastic. It's wonderful. I love it. It's described as dark chocolate, smoke, earthy, molasses, and fig. What do you think of that coffee, buddy?
That sounds interesting. Hey, one thing I wanted to add though, I know you mentioned it briefly. I do like Houston. I think Houston's an interesting stack.
Yes, I
I
was
think
going
I
to
probably,
ask you how your Houston Whisperer powers were doing today.
yeah, I mean, like Mexico City
Well, should
cures
I
all
say the
ill.
Houston anti-Whisperer powers?
No, no, Mexico City cures all ills. I mean, I couldn't believe that the ownership on some of those guys was as low as it was Saturday. I think the weather concerns were there. Bregman was 34%, but the rest of the guys were 10%. It didn't really make sense. Their price was down on Saturday. Um, okay, I thought that the late game playing Verlander, people that did that were just crazy. First of all, the Angels don't strike out that much, and you're in Mexico City. That elevation, the humidity, the size of that ballpark just did not lead to a good Justin Verlander game in a pitcher that gives up a lot of hard contact, a lot of fly balls deep. Um, Justin Verlander wouldn't have had the career that he did if he played in Coors, just because of and nobody really would, but he's just one of those guys that while he's overpowering, he does give up some massive shots, and they're going to go out in Mexico City. But talking about this, we're not talking about Verlander. We're not talking about anybody else other than the hitters here. So I like George Springer. I think I'd probably skip Altuve, go into Bregman, Brantley, Correa, and then maybe some Reddick or Stassi. Stassi's always a really cheap power option. He's a fly ball guy, 41% fly balls, strikes out a ton, but does have a little bit of pop in his bat. So that's kind of what you're looking for from the catcher position. But I like Brantley. Brantley's always a really safe play because, look, he's surrounded by righties. So, even if they bring in somebody to face Bregman or they bring in somebody to face Altuve or whatever the case is out of the bullpen, it's typically going to be a right-handed guy unless they want to go get another lefty just to face Brantley because you got Correa behind him. This guy's going to be in splits favorable matchups a lot of the time. I love putting Brantley in all of those stacks. He's been hitting really well. He got off to a real start. He's usually one of the cheaper pieces of that Houston team. And, Junis has had some struggles against left-handed bats, a 231 ISO this year. His strikeout rates are around 20%. I will tell you this, if you wanted to roster Junis in a GPP setting, I wouldn't tell you that you're crazy. I just wouldn't have a lot of exposure to it. His price is just down where it should be. When it was up at 8K and he was having struggles earlier this year, yeah, not so much. But down at 6,700, I think it was, or something to that effect. I think he's a fine play with probably absolutely no ownership behind him.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have just a couple of minutes left. So you like Houston, I like Boston. We both are kind of, GPP flexing. Maybe a little Baltimore gets to Boston's relievers. Who else are you liking? You kind of seem like you're talking yourself into a contrarian Milwaukee stack in one of your lineups.
Sure. And I mean, I think that if you don't believe in Walker Bueller, and I mean, I get it. I get why you would. I know that you want to, but I get why you wouldn't. I think a Atlanta lineup would be interesting. Something with like Freeman, Acuna had the day off, Markakis, McCann, Inciarte. Swanson's been struggling, so I'm not sure that I want to put him in a lineup. Donaldson's a guy that's been hitting a lot of hard contact, great exit velocity. So maybe you throw him in there. Maybe a Brave stack or a mini stack is something that you put in there. The only thing with Bueller is he hasn't been giving up a ton of hard contact or a bunch of home runs. He just hasn't been super effective or able to strike out left-handed hitters. So that 11% K rate against lefties in a lineup that's going to have half lefties probably keeps me off of Walker Bueller tonight. One last thing.
Any love for the Dodgers on the other side of that, though?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the Dodgers lineup's not going to be nearly as dangerous without Bellinger, and I don't know if Bellinger is going to be back in there. So I don't know if I like Gausman. But he does, man. He's striking out 33% of left-handers, and you're looking at a lineup that's probably going to have 4 or 5 left-handed hitters. So, certainly, again, a lot of risk there, but there's some upside too.
So is Jack Peterson off your radar as a one-off play now that his price has got up to 49? Is that too much for the one-off play for this man who's been absolutely on fire in his spot starts?
Yeah, Jock Peterson's really never on my radar, man. Never has been, probably never will be. He's too inconsistent. Yeah, he mashed a couple home runs, had a couple dual home run games, but you know what? So did Colton Wong. Are you thinking about putting Colton Wong in your lineup?
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, okay. Hey, one thing I saw on Twitter that was kind of interesting, and I wanted to put it out there with the emphasis on things like exit velocity. An average exit velocity is a super flawed stat because you can have somebody that has a exit velocity on two particular hits. Let's say they're both fly balls, 160, 120. The average is still 90, right? But somebody that hits two of them at 90 has an average of 90. So they both have the same average, but one exit velocity fly ball at 120 miles per hour is worth more than two at 90. So, that just got to look a little deeper into some of those stats that are pretty popular right now. Because, and I say that because a 90 exit velocity fly ball is probably an out, at most a double. A fly ball that's 120 miles an hour exit velocity is most likely a home run.
I dig it. Well, you can't hear it, but the exit music is playing. It means it's time for us to go. I am Johnny Danger for Chris Emmerich. We are the DFS Hangover Show from Draft for Upside. We will catch you guys Wednesday night for our full 2-hour show with the whole gang talking DFS, talking life, talking sports, talking PGA. We'll see you then. Peace out.